It's the last week of Black History Month here in the UK. Imagine, 5 weeks have literally blown by. It's mad. Anywho, I thought I'd end my little run of Black history related videos with something about porn and the representation of Black people in it. Thanks to the rise of, or the horror of the rise of the internet, depends where you're sitting, access to pornography is easy. Log on, tap in a couple of choice words, and blam, you have the hugest selection of adult vids just waiting for you. The internet is literally overrun with porn and thus devotes a huge portion of itself to the visual pastime that is constantly on the rise. Viewership stats tell us so. And amazingly, around 35% of all downloads from the internet are pornographic. There's a lot of talk when it comes to porn, the impact it has on society. But today, I'm just going to focus on how Black people are presented and perceived throughout it. I don't really think that the idea that porn plays on racial stereotypes is something up for debate. Titles of porno movies such as Black Slave Services, White Master, or White Gang Forces, Black Boyfriend to Watch, African Girlfriend Get Slammed, or something similar. Obviously, these are not real titles. Well, they might be, but that would just be pure coincidence, just so you know. Anyways, regardless, these examples are actually mild compared to what is available. There is literally no place porn as a whole does not go. Heck, some videos even have the N-bomb in the title. And horrifyingly, if and when there is something big that occurs socially, such as the slaying of George Floyd, as disturbing as it is, guaranteed someone is going to create a vid that plays on that event. And yep, those views will rack up. It's perverse, isn't it? I mean, it's not that I agree with it, but I kind of understand why things of this nature may appeal to some. The human brain, it's just different. It's wired different for different people. However, that doesn't go any way towards justifying why porn seems to get away with peddling problematic narratives with racial undertones. And what's more crazy is it would appear people do not seem to acknowledge what is so blatant. It's like porn is exempt from the usual scrutiny of society, yet it illustrates the worst of humanity. Studies continuously throw up stats that support depictions of aggression towards women as highest wherever there are Black couples featured. And actually, Black men are more likely to be shown exerting aggression towards women overall, with Black women more likely to be positioned as the target of aggression in porn films. This whole thing around aggression is an absolute result of the stereotypes that were created around Black people to justify slavery. Yes, we're going there again. Remember, Black people, mainly men, were described as brutish and strong. We know that strong was often a word used to describe Black male slaves. White slave masters were scared of Black men, the strength, their build, and all of that. So a lot of what they did to keep these slaves in line was born out of fear. This plays out in porn a lot. And to be honest, the filmmakers may have an idea of these subconscious biases, but I reckon a lot of them are not necessarily thinking, oh, let's throw back to slavery. It's more of an innate, I don't know why this makes sense to me kind of thing, but it does. Stereotypes have become embedded in society and therefore are rife in everything, and that's without thought, including education and how we're taught. Ironically, despite Black women often being depicted as recipients of aggression, they're usually presented as insatiable sexual objects with animalistic tendencies too. Again, this particular stereotype can be seen as far back as slavery. In fact, I did actually speak about this in one of my earlier videos. Black women are perceived as lustful beings. This was in stark contrast to how white women were seen in those days. White women were apparently pure, modest, prudish. So you can imagine these Black women with all that body and sensuality, they quite quickly become the main character in the fantasies of these white slave masters. And because he owns them, well, you know the rest. So yeah, it's definitely not unusual for Black women and young Black girls to be hypersexualized. It's been that. We see it in the media all the time. Again, as mentioned in a previous video, the hypersexualization of young Black women is one of the main reasons crimes of a sexual nature are underreported by Black women, or at least if they are reported, it's unlikely to end with a conviction of some sort because of this subconscious bias that sits in the mind of many. It's deep, it's dangerous, and it's extremely disturbing. I really, really want to delve into this, but you know what? Let's just keep it light and brief. What I will say is porn is a multi-billion-pound industry. Big bucks turn over regularly, and racial fetishization is one of the core cogs of the wheel of success when it comes to the industry. The gawking of racially stereotypical videos is an integral part of the porn industry's triumph. It speaks to secret perversions and desires, or maybe not so secret. Searching for a porno using a racial description is literally just a modern re-up of the exploitation Sarah Baartman was subjected to as the Hottentot Venus. Now that story is mad. Can't delve too deeply because we'll be here forever and a day. But in a nutshell, Sarah, or as per her Afrikaans name, Sati, she is probably most recognized as the black woman with the big butt, you know, the butt that sticks out like a ledge. You've seen the imagery. Yeah, that's her. She was basically subjected to human sexual trafficking and put on show for all and sundry. She was exhibited in London and other parts of Europe and eventually died at the ridiculously young age of 26 for reasons unexplained. Following her death, her body parts, yes, her body parts, were put on display in a museum in France. And it wasn't until President Nelson Mandela requested her remains to be returned back to South Africa. And that was in 1994. It took until 2002, which is 8 years later, for the remains to be returned. Once they were returned, she was laid to rest. Yeah, that deep. But my point to all this is porn is just mirroring history to an extent. Okay, so before I wrap up this video, I just want to say this. Porno movies are not an issue for me. In fact, they can provide great adult entertainment, ideas, and just, yeah, they can be a lot of fun. However, we cannot ignore the darker side of the industry, even if we don't indulge in that part ourselves. Racism is there, 1000%. And whilst we as adults may have the presence of mind to be able to differentiate between what's morally right and wrong, and we may even be able to get into something a little bit taboo for sexual gratification purposes, we still know certain thought patterns and presumptions are not conducive to a society that promotes or is trying to promote equality. But young minds are different. Young minds are impressionable, they're moldable, and they're relatively easy to taint too. So if for nothing else, this is the reason why more responsibility has to be taken when it comes to the narratives perpetuated in porn. Do I have my head in the clouds? Probably. Am I idealistic? Most likely. Am I completely delusional? Yeah, probably just a little bit. But hey, I don't see a damn thing wrong with dreaming and kind of hoping that this space that so many of us use and enjoy is just better all round.